Hi guys, in this series of web scraping in Python, we're going to understand the concept of web scraping using Selenium. So now, without any further ado, let's get started. What is web scraping? Web scraping is a web harvesting or web data extraction. It's data scraping used for extracting data from website. Data mining, you can simply call this as web mining because it searches a large set of data to look out for patterns and trends that can be found using simple analysis or techniques. For better understanding, I'm going to demonstrate to you on how to use web scraping in Selenium. So let's begin. For this demo, we're going to use this website, this www.worldmeters.info/coronavirus. As you can see, this is a simple website where currently, as of this recording, the corona cases virus is reached already 179 million already, and with the deaths and with the recovered. Also, within this website, we also have our case, active cases and closed cases. You can consider this as a critical situation as we are all facing right now. But for this demo, I would like to take this opportunity to use web scraping using this COVID live update. So let's start. To start with, I'm going to create a new folder. And I'm going to call this as web scraping. Web scraping project. Then, for my editor, I'll be using VS Studio Code. On your part, you can use anything other than this one. You can use Spider, Anaconda, or PyCharm. Doesn't matter. The concept behind this web scraping are still the same. Okay, now that we have our project set up, the next thing we need to do is we need to create a virtual environment to secure all our installation. So to do that, we need to open our terminal. And from here, I'm going to type Python -m venv, which is the virtual environment, and the name of my virtual environment is .venv. For those are using VS Code, it doesn't matter if you are also in PyCharm or Spider. Like I said, the concept are still the same. Okay, so we're done. Now let's check. To activate our virtual environment, we need to access it using or by clicking this one here. And from scripts, copy active and copy relative path. Once copied, You need to paste that in here and hit enter. As you can see, now that we are in the inside of virtual environment, so if this is ready, then we're okay. So this is how you set up your virtual environment in Python. So let's clear this up. Okay. For this demo, I'll be using only Selenium. So just for Selenium and Firefox driver or the web driver. So let's install first our Selenium. To do that, we need to type pip install Selenium. Okay, good. Need to clear this up here. Okay. Now that we have installed our Selenium, going to create our first file in Python. Going to name that as WebScraping.py. Okay, so okay. The first thing we need to do is we need to call our Selenium. So to do that, we need to call from Selenium, and we need to import the package property, which is the WebDriver. So to do that, you need to import WebDriver. Okay. The next thing we need to do is we need to call as well as the driver. So to do that, we need to type WebDriver dot. Okay. For this demo, I'll be using Firefox. So I'm going to call Firefox. Okay. I'm going to stop from this point here because right now we don't have our WebDriver for Firefox. So to do that, we need to download it from our website, from the website. So if you are on your browser, make sure you need to search. I'm going to search from bing.com. So you need to search for Gecko driver. So okay. You need to pick this Mozilla Gecko driver. So this is the driver that we'll be using in our Selenium. As of the time of this recording, the latest release is 0.29.1. So once you're on that version, just click that and hit download. Okay, so once you download this version, for this demo, I already download the version for that. This is my version. So you need to extract that and paste that inside your folder. So this is my folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder. So let's say I'm going to name this as driver. Okay. Then going to extract and put our Gecko driver. Okay, so now it's inside. Okay, now that our driver is here, the next thing we need to do is we need to set up our path of our Gecko driver here. So this is the driver that we're going to use. So to do that, you need to type executable, and the path. Okay, for the path, going to type r dot the name of the folder, so which is driver, and slash gecko driver.exe. Okay, so let's check. So take note, I create a variable here which is driver, and using WebDriver this is the executable path, which is dot slash driver slash gecko driver.exe. Okay, once you already set up your driver, the next thing we need to do is we need to set up our URL. So this is the URL that we're going to scrape or to do our web scraping. So for example, I'm going to copy that website. So this is our website. I'm going to copy this one here. I'm going to paste in our driver.get. Okay. So that's it. That's the first thing that we need to know first. Now, if you're doing some Selenium export scraping, so this is the starting point. So the rest of these, okay, from this here and on, we're going to do our first very own web scraping. So to do that, we need to understand first how can we get, or how do we do, or how do we perform the web scraping. Okay, let me demonstrate first. Okay, if you're working for a certain website, the first thing we need to understand is, or should I say that if you are a web developer, usually when you create a website, if you view this as web page, view page source, while waiting for this, if you are a web developer or a startup in web programming, the very meat of this understanding is you should know how your coding, how your HTML construction works. So basically, if you're dealing with website, we are taking up our tags. So like this one, this doc type, HTML tag, head tag, meta, and so forth. So these are the very basic foundation in website. And usually, if this is not your website and you have a program or a setup that you want to mine or to get the information, so usually nowadays, like Python, we can do that by using web scraping. So this is a method that capturing like this special tag like this one. Before, when you say web scraping is something which is not common to web developer. It's because the web scraping part is the one who are usually working on the front end part and not on the back end. So that's the difference with the web developer and data mining developer, which is like this method. So let's continue. So under this website, we can clearly see our basic tagging here. Okay, so of course you should know first. You should also understand the HTML concept, because basically within this information, we need to scrape usually almost all of it. But for this demo, I don't want to scrape all of these things. What I'm going to do is I'm going to focus only on this information, wherein I'm going to pick up this last update, this information, the coronavirus cases, the deaths, and the recovery. I'm going to extend my example until this frame here, the active cases and the closed cases, and so forth. Okay. So these are the basic things that we need to focus on. So let's begin. Now, in web scraping, you need to understand, or you need to have a knowledge on how to get this information. A while ago, I used the method of view page source. Now, whether you are in Chrome or other browser that you're currently using, this is the foundation of HTML. But if you're doing a web scraping, we'll be only focusing on one certain area. So like this one. Okay. Let's say for this one, I'm going to focus on getting the last update. Currently, as of this recording, this information of pandemic is as of June 21, 2021. Okay. So for me to extract this information, I need to simply right click and inspect. So this is the fastest method on how to get this information. If I click this one here, there you go. So let's expand this one here. Okay. So notice this is the information. Okay, let's move. Okay. Notice that this is the information of the last update. So what we need to do is we need to scrape this information or fetch this information and save it or export that in our Python. So let's begin. So to do that, for you to extract this information, you can simply right-click this one, and then you can select copy. Now, there's a bunch of information here for you to scrape. So you can scrape the inner HTML, outer, CSS selector, CSS path, and XPath. Let's say going to copy using inner HTML. If I copy this one, and I'm going to paste that in here, there you go. So notice, upon copy using HTML, okay, let's go back there. Okay. After I copy using inner HTML, it really captures the whole information or the certain information that I want. But of course, if you do this manually, it's okay. But if you're a data scientist, you need to use a certain code to capture this one. Now, to do that, we need to use the properties of driver. So from here, the fastest way is, okay, let's say, okay. So to do this one, the fastest way for me to capture or to scrape this element is going to assign this. Going to assign this in variable. Then I'll be using the driver. And for this one, I'm going to use the find element properties. Okay. So since I'll be focusing on one section, so it should be one particular field. For me, usually I use the XPath. Now, there's so many ways to do this, but the fastest way is usually most of the time I'm going to use XPath. But there are a lot of tutorials there that you can also use other things, like the .csm, okay, the one that I showed a while ago. Now let's continue. Now from here I use XPath. So the fastest way to capture this information, let's say this one, is to copy the XPath. So I'm going to copy that and then going to paste that in here. Okay. Now, as you can see, this is the full path of that certain element. So now, what I'm going to do is I need to print that information. So to do that, I'm going to print L. Then, since it is inside of that div, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the get property. Then inside that property, I'll be using or call the inner HTML. Okay. So a while ago, I demonstrate this using the copy. You copy the inner HTML. So in here, I'll follow. We'll be doing also the same concept, but this time we track the element with this path here. So at the end of this path, we're going to call this information the inner HTML. So let's try. So let's try by typing py and then the name of my Python, which is WebScraping.py. Okay. So this is one thing if you're using web scraping. From time to time, we're going whenever you execute your code, it will basically launch the website, and then from that website, it will going to start searching all the tags within that web page. Okay, let's minimize this while waiting. Okay. Once the web page is completely loaded, okay, so this is how, okay, once we finish loading, it will start checking what's within the HTML. So from this one here, it says that it has an error, cannot find the element. So let's check why is it cannot find the element. HTML body, expat, and then sub execute. Okay, unable to locate elements. This one here. So for some cases, this is the hardest part because you need to scrape a lot of things from here. So deep 2, deep 1, deep 2. Oh, so it seems it's okay. Then inner HTML, get property. Let's pick this one by one. Okay. From here, it's called the H9 says in find element, execute find element. It says that it's not unable to search. Okay, let's try this again. Maybe we need to recopy our information. Let's say this one, just to make sure that we need to recopy again our expat directory. Sometimes it will take time, especially if you're doing some scraping. The hardest part here is you need to make sure that all the path is working. So let's try this again. Since I already copy the correct path, let's try check that. Okay, so unable to locate this element. Okay, so let's check this why this one is not working. So, okay, a while ago I noticed that I forgot to put the driver.close. Okay. From this point here, we need to ensure that our code or our application or driver should always be closed at the end of the execution. So most of the time, I noticed that I got some errors on that part. So here now, now that I already declared the driver that close, now let's try again execute uh, this XPath that we get a while ago. So to do that, we need to run again web scraping. For some reason, driver.close is not working on Firefox. But later on, I just noticed when I'm about to try with Chrome, so usually it works. But I also tried driver.quit, but same still, it's not. Usually the target is once this page is loading, instead of loading all those pages, we need to close that at the end. So what happened is that it seems that the version is not closing the page after its execution. Okay, so let's check. Okay, good. Now that we successfully loaded our last update, so this is the path here is workable. Okay, so that's the first part. Let's go back to our website. Okay. Now the next okay. Now that we have already captured this information, the next thing I need to capture is this information, the coronavirus cases, the death, and the recovered. So to do that, same as what we did to last update, I'm going to inspect this element. I'm going to click right click. And from right click, I'm going to click inspect. Okay, please take note, I'm only using Firefox because that's our driver. So if we'll be using the Chrome, we're going to use also as well the Chrome web driver. Okay. Okay, now that let's check this very carefully. So as you can see, this 179 million cases of corona has been under span. So this is the element, which is the parent is the main counter number. So let's check. So this is much easier because this one we can get through using deep class. So let's check more. Okay. For this one, so why am I checking this one? We need to ensure that this is under on the same class. Because in web scraping, you can apply multiple search. Unlike a while ago, I only searched one particular area. So in this section here, I'm going to check all the tags that I'm targeting and check if they are belongs to one group or separate. Okay, like this one, the deaths. So notice this is also under span and also within the deep class main counter number. So this is the second one. So notice that the first one a while ago. So okay, so this one also under main counter number, and same with the death. This one. Okay, let me inspect. Same with the information here under deaths. It is also belong to main counter number. So how about the last one, the recovered? So let's check this as well. Okay, good. So same goes. So this is the good thing. The three of this information belongs to one group. So both of them or three of them are under deep class main counter number and with the span information. So with this kind of scenario, we can use a for loop for this one to search. So a while ago, when I create this one, I only focus on one element because a while ago, this was not belong to a deep class. So if we're going to check back again our date, which is this one, if we're going to inspect that, this one belong to this deep. Okay, oh yeah. So this one also belong to label counter class. So same as well, we can also capture this information. But same also, we can also use the one, the X class, XPath. So we can also do that. So in web scraping, the simplest part is you need to identify the topmost class if it is a unique and can be easily get the information. So there's no issues with that. But in this case, like this one, last update, this was belong in another div. Okay, this belong to another div, but with no class. Usually, this is the hardest part in capturing an information because since this is not belong in a class, unlike this one here, you see, class label counter. Although you can do it the loop, but most of the case, like this one, this already belong to one group. Let's say this is the closing tag, this div here. While here, the last update here, the closing tag is within this last update, but it's untraceable because there's no class, which serves to be an ID. So that's why we need to get the full path using XPath. Now going back. Okay, a while ago when we checked this one, upon expect that we noticed that they belong in one group and with the same class, which is the main counter number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look all this information to capture this detail here. Now to do that, okay, what I need to going to do is I need to assign this in a loop. So how to apply that is simply, let's say, I'm going to label this as label, simple as label. And I'm going to call the driver and apply the find element. Find element. This time I'm going to capture all elements similar within that class. So I'll be using find elements, this time by XPath. Why XPath? It's simply because XPath has the longest range because you're going to capture the entire path just to reach this information. Now let's continue. A while ago, I noticed that there's a similar or one common is the div class. So to call the div with the class, we need to assign like in this manner, //div. So that's the calling information or the path that we're going to call now. So this is the div. So under that div, I'm going to call that class. So for the class, okay. Now, from this information, I need to get the class name. So let's go back in there and check what's the class name. So notice they are all belong to main counter number. Just to confirm. Inspect tag here. So here, main counter number. And same goes with this one. Main counter number. So what I mean is they are belong in the same class, same div class of main counter number. So we need to call those informations and to get the information within. To do that, let's say from here. Okay, so now that we identify our class, so what we're going to do is we need to get the name of the class. So the name of the class is main counter.number. Okay, now there's another thing. Now that I identify the deep class, which is the main counter number, as you notice, there are, it was being encapsulated with this span style here. So this is most commonly, this is the most common for this group. So if I inspect from here, this is also under span. You see? So all of them are grouped within the same class, but within the span. So to do that, we need to call our span. So that's the point of that's the way of getting the information. So to do that, we need to go the inner part, which is the span. Yeah, simple as that. So, okay. Okay. Now that we have called our path, so I suppose this should work because right now we called the parent part, which is the deep class of main counter, and under that is the span, which means we're targeting the span information. So again, so from this part here, I'm going to assign an array. So let's say this one. And on this one, I'm going to say set up this an array. Then I'm going to perform an loop or S in a range. Then from that range, I'm going to pick this information. So I'm going to type it in here. So the first thing you need to get is the range. So what's the total range from the root to the end of the root, so which is the span. So we need to get the length and the variable label. So that's the variable that we assign. From here, this label array, I'm going to store that in this array. So, and to do that, we need to apply the append. And we're going to call the label. And with the S, which is I assigned in the for loop here, the for S in range. So that's the S. So within that information, I'm going to call the text information. Okay, so then from that part here is I need to print the array content. So let's check. We're going to list down the output of this search or find elements. So again, so from here we apply the driver and with the properties of find elements by xpath because we're going to deal with the longest or the entire path. So this is the equivalent of the longest path. Also, this was interpreted in this manner. So from here, it was been simplified. So to do that, we call the deep, which is the parent element with the class of main counter. And within that main counter, we need to capture the span information. Okay, so that makes sense. So let's save this one here and let's run again. Clear. And going to run by web scraping. Okay, so while waiting for this one, I'm going to minimize that. Okay, for beginners, I want you guys to check on Selenium documentation and learn other things aside from this one. Right now, in my demonstration, I just demonstrate which is the common search pattern in searching or doing the web scraping. So these are some common things like this one, the full link or the full path of XPath, and this simplified search. Okay, so we have an error within this one. So let's check. Oh, okay. So what happened here is I forgot to apply this one. Okay. Yeah, so I think that's the missing information. Okay, so I'm going to clear this again and run our web scraping. So ensure that you are checking your the codes. Like here, I use a single code, and within here, I code the double code for the class. Okay, let's wait for a while. Okay, this is another thing. When you're doing web scraping, it will take time because the first thing that you need to do is you need to load the page. Then once the page is loaded, then it will going to start checking each element tags. So it depends on what you're searching for. Okay, so let's check. Oh, it's not defined. Okay, so I use list. So it should be list 1. Okay, let's save. Hopefully no more errors. Hopefully that should work. So why I assign this in an array? The best way for me to capture this list is to store them in an array. Instead of printing them one by one, so I just encapsulate that in one single variable. So that's the best way for this one. You can do it in different manners. So, but for me, I just use this array, which means I feel comfortable with this one. If you are using other types of, let's say, just normal print, that should be okay. As long you're on the goal of extracting the information. Okay, good. Okay, good. So now that we successfully extracting the information, so this section here is working. Okay, so we're going to label each part just to ensure that we know that what is this information code. So this one is the last update, and here is this is the coronavirus cases. So this is the coronavirus cases, deaths, and recovered. So copy this one here. Recovered. Okay, good. Okay, so that's it. Now the next thing is our target now, since we already captured this information here. The next thing we need to capture now is this. Okay, we need to secure this information. So the first thing we need to do is we need to check each or inspect each element. To do that, same goes. Right click, inspect. Okay, so this belongs to div class number table main. Okay, let's check also this one. Oh, so this is different. So this is belong to span class number table, and this one, this is also belong to span class number table. So notice these two information here are belong in one group, while this one is a different group. So let's check another. Of course, we need to check this as well because it seems that they are belong to the same level. I would suspect that these are belong to the same group. So let's check. Yeah. So correct. So this one is under class number table main. So which means this one is the same with this one. So let's go back here. Okay, so as you can see, they belong to number table main. So good. So this two information here belongs to the same group. So how about this one here? We need to inspect. Okay, so same goes. So this one also belong to number table, and I suppose this one as well. Yeah, so they're the same. So notice this 4 information here belongs to one group, and same goes with this header belongs to also to one group. So let's begin first with the currently infected, which is belong to this one. So they belong to number table main. So number table main. So since they belong in the same group, we can pick that one. So yeah, they belong in div class. So to do that, I'm going to label this one as currently infected patients and cases with had outcome, with had an outcome. Okay, so since they belong on the same group, I would say I could use this method here. So yeah, I can copy this one here and paste here. Okay, so we need to identify first what's the div class element or what group they belong. So for this one, they belong to number table main. Number table main. Yeah. So that should be number table main. Oh, should be separate. Okay, so this belong to number table main. Just to make sure. Okay, good. So this is number table main. So also, yeah, so just plain. Okay, just plain. So there's no within this class. So there's no other element tag. So it's, yeah, I think this is easy. So we need to use that function. So this time here, I'm going to apply, let's say, this is label 2, and this is should be 2 with a length of 2 with the array of label these 2, and this one label 2 as text, and I'm going to print 2. Okay, so same goes. I just applied the concept with this one here. The difference is since they belong, this one don't have a span, so I need to remove this one. So yeah, let's try. Okay, okay, let's check again just to make sure. Correct. So this one here don't have a span within inside the div class number table main. The same goes with this one. As you can see, both of them are just plain number table main. Now let's try capture that information using that text. A while ago when I used this that text information because I'm using to capture span. So let's see if this works also with a div class that don't have a tag element. So let's try. So let's clear this one here and run. For some cases, you can use text if there is an element within, but sometimes it won't work. So the alternate way to do that is to capture the inner HTML. But for this demonstration, let's check if this text will be detected within that div class. So let's wait. Okay. Okay, so okay. The first thing we notice that it identifies the value. But the thing is, the that text don't recognize. So for these cases, we're going to use a different property. So to do that, we're going to apply the concept of, or apply the property of get property. Okay, to do that, instead of using text, because since a while ago when I said text, it's because if there's an element within the D class. So since we don't have any other elements, we're going to use the property name. Property. Then we're going to use the property of inner HTML. Okay. Now, using inner HTML, so which means it's a clear element. So what it does, it will capture what's within that div class. So that's why this is the best common things when you search of inner element that don't have other element. Okay, let's try. Let's clear this again. Then let's run. I'm gonna minimize that. If you're working as a data scientist, especially in data mining, web scraping is one of the hardest part, similar to what you're doing with web programming. But the coolest part with web scraping is that you don't need to create a program just to get the information. So what you need to do is you just apply the scraping method like this one, the codes that we're dealing with. So using the simple code, we can scrape certain parts or area that we're targeting our information. So that's the coolest part with web scraping. Okay, good. Okay, so now that we succeed, so as you can see, it's already appeared in this section here. So this one here is working. Now let's continue with the last part, which is the okay. So this section here is already done. The next thing we need to do is to capture these 4 information. So since they belong to the same group, okay, as you can see, they belong to the same group, but this time it doesn't belong to a parent class, because the parent here don't have a class identifier, so we cannot identify that. But instead, we're going to identify using this span class, because they belong to a certain group, which is the number table under span. So this should be much easier. So let's try this using this method. So take note, this belong to span. So, a while ago, it's much easier because this there will belong on one group, which is the class. Now, the technique in creating a or doing the scraping is you need to detect or identify the class, the ID. So these are the common identifiers. So these are the common keys for you to extract. So since there belong to a certain group, still I'm going to use this information, and I can copy this one. This time, let's say I'm going to clear that one. So this time, I'm going to get the in-mild. This is the in-mild. And serious or critical. Critical. The next one is recovered or discharged. And the last one, this is debts. Okay, so from here, since they belong in one group but under span, so span, I'm going to copy or place the span here. And the span class, so they belong to, let's go back in there. So the group name or the group class for this one is number table, number dash table. So number dash table. Okay, cool. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to assign this as label 3. For this one, I'm going to go assign this label 3 as well. With the range of label 3, happen here to 3. The property of 3. Okay. Now, since this is a span, let's try first with inner HTML. Because usually when I do some scraping, aside from using text, okay, if this text won't work, we can use this property, the inner HTML. So for this one, I'm going to leave this as is and check and see if this is works. So let's print this now. Okay. So this one, I retain the inner HTML. If later this one work, we're going to change this or replace this for text. Okay. So that's the two codes, the most common thing when I do some web scraping. So let's create this again. And let's run. Okay, good. Okay, so that's it, guys. So as you can see, we managed to export the last part, which is the in-mild, serious or critical, recovered and discovered or discharged, and dead. So that's it. Okay. Now, as you can see, we managed to capture only the basic information. So there are a lot of things that we can scrape from this point from here. So there's so many things that you can scrape from this website. Now, if you're working using this code, try this on different website. So don't worry, on the next video series, we're going to continue this web scraping because this is the fun part. And also, just please take note, this only works for Firefox because we only use the Gecko driver of the Firefox. On the next series, I'll be using Chrome also for our next demonstration. But for now, if you find this video informative, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. And see you guys on the next video series. Cheers!